You're too old, and it's too late to start. Has anyone ever said that to you? Well, I'm here to tell you that it's too late to quit. And oh yeah, you're not too old. In fact, the good news is that it's always the right time to start. You've come to the right place. And me and my friends are going to share our stories of why we will never, ever throw in the towel. Welcome to the Too Late to Quit podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Iftikharuddin. Let's go. Okay, so I wanted to give a quick intro before we begin episode 7. I got to interview a friend of mine that I've known for over 20 years. He is somebody that I've looked up to musically from the first night that I saw him perform in Orlando, Florida. And it was a night, I remember there were a bunch of different performers, and I learned everything I could ever want to know about stage presence and performance from watching my friend Stephen Lyons perform that evening. I got to talk to Stephen about his very first musical inspirations and what really launched him off onto his career and how he began getting into music and where that has taken him. And he shares some really interesting backstories to his journey and to his own personal velocity. I know you're going to love this episode, so please enjoy my interview with the one, the only, Stephen Lyons. And we are live. Welcome to the Too Late to Quit podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 7, we have a very, very special guest. I am so excited to bring to the podcast Mr. Stephen Lyons. So you'll notice one of the most amazing things about Stephen is that he has natural reverb in his voice. He's using zero effects. He has the ability to turn natural human reverb on and off at will. So, Stephen, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. Lucky number 7.
Oh man.
I wanna quick before we get into this, I wanna share with the audience why I wanted to invite Stephen onto the podcast. Many years ago in Orlando, and one of the interesting things that I've noticed is that I now say things like, 20 years ago. So about over 20 years ago, I was living in. What's that?
20 days ago. It was 20 days ago.
It's 20 days ago. I was living in Orlando, and I was working on an album, and I was going absolutely stir crazy. And so I was looking for open mics in the area. I hadn't been there too long, and I'm trying to remember the name of this club. It had some kind of a classy name. I can't remember what it was.
Dante's
had an open mic. I remember they had like a red velvet curtain. It had a very loungy kind of vibe. And this man, it was a very small stage. And this man got up there with an acoustic guitar, and the entire lounge turned into one of the biggest stadiums I've ever been in. I'm pretty sure you were wearing these cool cowboy boots, and you got on, and your voice completely leveled the room. I couldn't believe what I was watching or hearing.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember thinking, is this guy on tour and he's just got a break between nights and he's just trying out some new stuff? And I remember looking down at the stage, I'm like, something doesn't match here, because it was such a small stage, but your performance was so completely massive. That was the first time that I witnessed the hurricane of energy and voice that is Stephen Lyons. It's one of like my favorite musical memories because I had never heard someone that had such a naturally powerful voice in person, it live, and let alone at an open mic. That was my introduction to your musical force.
That was a special time, really was. It was the season of love. I was down there doing Orlando Shakespeare, and they were doing a production of As You Like It. And they set it in 1969 America. And it was like this idea you're bringing in music, folk rock from the 60s, especially 1969, Summer of Love. And it was just a beautiful time. And I'd written some original music for it. And that's when we got to meet, thankfully, at the old Dante's. That was so much fun, man.
It was just so at that point in time, because for those of you who are catching up to the podcast, the reason I started this is that I realized I know so many people, so many of my close friends are musicians, and a lot of us are north of our 40s, and we are we're still in it. None of us have stopped. None of us have said, "Well, I guess it's time to." Well, I guess it's time to hang up my guitar. Like we've never. That to me, and speaking for myself, is the most absurd idea. And I've realized that society has this idea, and I've talked about it before on the pod, where when I was 21, I felt like I was an old man. Like I
Yeah.
was too late for the biz. Like, oh no,
Mhm.
kid, if you're not 16, you're too old.
It's
Um,
in a life to go. Your crime is time. Oh man, it's a little too late for that.
so the what I'm curious about is that I want people to hear your story as far as how you got started. If you could, I'd like everybody to know a little bit about how versatile your artistry is. I've seen you do so many different things, and one of the main reasons why I feel very fortunate to call you a friend and to have you here to share the knowledge. You're one of the most generous people with your knowledge. There was a time when I was auditioning for some TV pilot in New York City, and you completely helped me prepare for an
Oh.
audition. I went and I think it was Christopher Durang.
I love Christopher Durang.
And you said, "Oh, here's some ideas if you're going to do a comedic monologue,"
Mm-hmm.
and that I, as the kids say today, I slayed that audition using Christopher Durang's words. And I remember I even did a run through with you on the phone, and so. It's super important for me to have you on the pod because you have such a wealth of knowledge,
I
and
don't
I'd
know about
love.
that.
No, because I know you jest, but you're so generous to share all of the proper steps. And I know you're in many different arenas. So I'd love it if you could just, uh, if we could start off, if you could just tell me how your path started.
Oh gosh. Well, singing was my first love. It just kind of came. It happened. I had a Kmart boombox, one of those double decker specials, and I can remember sitting in my desk um, and listening to Casey Kasem's Top 40. And it used to be on Sunday nights or something, but that's how you heard music. And it was kind of like an epiphany for me. I was sitting at my desk doing my thing, and I heard this 125 beats per minute. I'm like, what the hell is that? And then the keyboard entrance, ring, ding, ding. And then the bass, ding, 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 ding. And then the keyboard solo. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? It was literally one of those moments where I was like, my ears were seized, and I became fixated on what was happening from my Kmart boombox. And then this man starts singing, and he goes into the chorus, and then I can't even make out what he's saying, but I'm hearing his voice, this male voice, go from this low tone up through this stratospheric falsetto. I'm like, what the hell is he saying? What the hell is he singing? How is he singing this? And I just became intoxicated by melody, by what I was hearing. And what I was hearing was synthesizer, um, drum beat, this beautiful melodic structure, complex, dark, light shades. Um, and it's take on me. And it took me by
Wow.
surprise. That song was like a literal epiphany. So I started, singing along. And that's where I began to discover that I had a voice and that I could sing like this guy. And so I became obsessed with this band. They were from Norway. What bands are from Norway? There were no bands from Norway. But I fell like in love with this crazy mystique, this sort of Scandinavian mystery that they had. And I just, yeah, that's where it all started.
It was giving me chills hearing. That's such a beautiful way that you described that song. And for you listeners out there, there was a video of Steven performing this song. Was it at the bitter end?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. A few years
Steven is
ago.
one of the few human beings that can actually sing this song in its original key
But
without any auto tune.
the one mistake I made was trying to dance. Because it just turns into me flailing around, because every time I hear that song, I become trapped in that video. And I try to like move, and I really shouldn't dance.
I love it. That is okay. So we've got Casey Kasem. We have you listening on this boombox, hearing "Aha." From there, when did you get your first instrument? When did you begin to start writing? When did you start really starting to develop your voice after that? And how old were you when that happened?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I guess around 13 or so. Um, and it was like, once I heard that song, I would look for it everywhere. And then when I saw the video, I mean, just fell in love with that. That video is timeless because it's about something so beautiful and pure. A boy meets a girl. He pulls her into this comic strip, and there's all these different themes of just like innocence and pure love, falling in love. And yeah, I really became hooked on that video and the band, and followed all their work. But really started exploring melody and how I could use my voice. And so I would just like emulate his singing, listening, like whenever my parents went out, went out, I would just practice alone because I was too embarrassed to like sing in front of them. So that's how I just started working and discovering and exploring what my voice could do. Later on, I took voice lessons, but that was sort of how I began learning what melody is and developing my ears for what melodic structure attracted me to.
Well, okay, it's interesting that you mentioned that video. I think that was the first time I'd ever seen what I later learned. I believe it's called rotoscoping.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember watching that video, and there's that scene where he's throwing himself, he's trying to crash out of the
Mm-hmm.
cartoon. And
Yeah.
there's something it hit me really hard that scene is
Mm-hmm.
very dramatic. It comes out of nowhere.
Yep.
And it wasn't like this cheesy bubblegum pop video there that had there was the villain in it. I just remember feeling very emotional when I watched that video. It was so
Yeah.
meaningful.
Yeah. They apparently, the artist who did those sketches, he I think did something like 20,000 sketches to compile the entire rotoscope.
Oh my gosh.
So it's crazy.
So now, and where was this? Where did you grow up?
Westchester, Pennsylvania, where I have returned.
And in Westchester, did you grow up? Was that a very musical household?
No, it wasn't. That's crazy. I mean, my dad, used to love listening to the classics, Beethoven, Brahms, Pavarotti, and he used to, him and my beloved Uncle Frank, who lived next door, they were our neighbors for like years, and they were like family, second family. And my Uncle Frank and my dad would get together and they'd play chess every week. It was like this set ritual, and Dad would play the music and the classics, and it was just it was wonderful. It was just family, but I no instruments. No instruments in the family. My grandmother played cello for a little bit. My dad, there on my dad's side of the family, there was my Uncle Jimmy, who was a tenor. Um, he used to sing at a lot of the weddings and the funerals, but not a whole lot of uh, musicians.
So from that moment where you hear "Take on Me," when from there, when did you start? And I know you said you started taking singing lessons. How then did you come to have your first instrument, and when did you start performing?
Well, another tangent too, I'll just mention here real quick, was when I discovered U2.
Mm.
And I was working at a golf club. And it was like kind of my first real job in high school or middle school, wherever it was. And it was washing golf clubs for the members. So they'd finish their rounds, they'd drop off their clubs, and we'd haul them in to this back dungy room where there was like these industrial bins of golf bags and attitude and everything else. And I would dip the golf clubs into the water and wash them off. And then there was this little, boom box in the corner, banged up boom box. And there was another epiphany. I heard this bass line. And then the ethereal tones of the edge. And I'm like, what the hell's happening? And it was another moment. And that song, With or Without You, and then Where the Streets Have No Name, they were cranking those songs out on the radio all the time. And I just fell in love with that, the sort of sonic landscape. It wasn't just your traditional rock, this sort of one-dimensional, loud, distorted guitar, and like screamy vocals. It was beautiful, atmospheric melody through the guitar and through the vocals. And I began falling in love with that aesthetic. So those were two very pivotal moments in my musical development. And you'd mentioned about like what was the first guitar instrument I picked up.
Yeah.
So it was Al Beans in Westchester by Westchester University. He was this like stoner from the 60s. Really sweet guy. Didn't know how to run a music store. It would be like he'd come in, hey, what, you need some strings? Okay. How much do I owe you, Mr. Bean? I guess $2. No, $1.50. That's fine.
Wow.
And so I was walked in one day and I saw this red guitar, and it was this Hagstrom, this old red uh, Viking, Swedish Hagstrom. It was a Viking 7, I think it was. And it was $99. And so I bought it. And it was spring break in high school. And we're down at the Jersey Shore, Wildwood, New Jersey. Every time I hear Wildwood, it's like you have to say it like that. Wildwood, New Jersey, spring break. So that's where I learned to play guitar on spring break. A buddy of mine showed me a few chords, and that's when I started, learning guitar.
Okay, wait a second. Is this the same Hagstrom that's on the cover of your album Fall?
No, that's a separate story.
Okay. I was going to say that would be amazing. So that was the first guitar that you got. And then so how did you start learning songs, or what was your process when you after you took those lessons with that friend?
It was just like learning chord structures from friends, like A minor, D, G, C, and then trying to emulate what the Edge was doing through delay. So I bought a delay pedal and really started exploring, texture creation. And so it was really just like learning from my friends. We'd get together and they'd show me a few chords, but learning the bar chords was the toughest thing.
Mm-hmm.
It always
right.
is.
Right.
But that Hagstrom was a gem. I've always believed that you have to connect with a guitar.
Uh-huh.
There's just got to be that connection. So
100%. I totally agree with you.
You have a ton of guitars.
I do. I have a lot of guitars. I remember when one time you came over, we were jamming at my place in Orlando, and I remember I was looking at a picture of it. I got very sad. I had this hollow body. I think it was an Epiphone, and you played the Top Gun theme song. I had this incredible twin reverb amp. You cranked that thing, and in this little house in Orlando, and I just saw like F-16s or F whatever those jets, like just F-14 just crashing through the sky. But I've always been into collecting the guitars.
Yeah,
because I agree with you. Like each of them has a special vibe to them.
Yeah.
So how do we get from those taking those random lessons from friends, and was it Wildwood?
Race fans, hot riders, get ready! Wildwood, New Jersey, summer spectacle.
So how do we get from there to then you performing on stage and actually composing songs, and walking me through that whole journey? I don't think I've ever asked you this.
Yeah, I mean, theater was what I did first in high school. The high school play. Auditioned for that in my freshman year and got in and got the bug, so to speak, as they all say. But it was my sophomore year in high school that I auditioned for my first musical. And that's when I fell in love with, the idea of combining music with theater. But as I got older, I realized that these were two very different things, and musical theater is a different animal. But I played Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and then it all went to my head and became an egomaniac. And So, it's just that was where I fell in love with the idea of, singing, telling story through song. But then the discovery process of writing your own songs and telling your own stories started to merge from that. And I always felt like there were songs and stories that I wanted to say, but it was taking a long time to get them out, and really the right way of doing them, of creating, because musical theater is a very specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very specific kind of technique in terms of singing. And with the evolution of some of the musicals we're seeing now, like Once, a New Musical, Jason Robert Brown's work, so many phenomenal shows that are what they call actor musician shows. They're really leaning into a different kind of creativity, where indie pop and other genres kind of push musical theater in a different direction. So I find that exciting. But yeah.
So, I've never met somebody who has such a naturally powerful voice. Was that always there? Or did you ever have to develop that, or was that kind of just like a baseball player discovering they can throw all the way from the edge of center field to home plate?
Well, I mean, what you're born with is what you're born with, but it's what you do with what you're given that really defines your voice. For me, it was exploring how Morten Harket would use his lower tones, his falsetto and head voice, and how he would blend that and sort of create colors through how he'd form vowels and so forth. And Bono has a very different kind of style. It's hard on his sleeve. It's yearning. It's sometimes operatic. Actually, Morton is also an operatic kind of singer, more so, I think, than Bono. But he's a big belter. And the Irish in me always gravitated towards Bono's passion and like political activism. So, yeah, it was, a lot of it was self-discovery. Also growing to learn what was not comfortable and what was not healthy as a singer. I was never into metal. I respect the genre. I respect the genre, but that's all you were bombarded with, like in the 90s and the 80s.
Sure.
And also the sexism that went along with that too. I mean, it just.
What's interesting though? What I found very interesting about that is that you would have been able to join any of those bands as the frontman and sing any of those songs perfectly.
It's ain't a life to go. Your crime is time. I just turned into Cobra Commander.
That's the other thing that you will learn in this conversation. Stephen has he's like the Oracle of Voices. And you can just turn a radio dial and hear.
Whoa!
I believe Stephen is stepping out of the room, and Mr. Christopher Walken, is that you?
Hi,
Mr. Walken. It is such an honor to have you on the Too Late to Quit podcast. I'm not even sure where to begin.
Fire, baby, fire!
I loved your Super Bowl commercial. I thought it was fantastic.
Thanks. Oh, hot owls. Ooh, like a lynx moving down the road. Tofu and peaches. That's disgusting, but you still want more. Hey, everyone. Whoa. Dynamite.
Mr. Walken, I'm just curious, how did you first discover the music of Steve Lyons?
Regis Philbin. Whoa. Yeah, it was on his show. Love Regis. We were like this. Yeah, I heard the guy sing, I love the Skid Row. What can I say?
That's amazing.
Everybody has a little walking in them, right?
Yeah, right. um, so I'm curious. Uh, how old? So when you were you were a sophomore when you were Joseph, and you said you turned into an egomaniac.
It goes to your head.
I find that so interesting because, I mean, is that something that you later worked on? Because when I met you, I remember thinking that the level of your talent and then your how down to earth and how approachable and how kind you were, I think that's a really special combination.
Well, I mean, the business is insane, as we know. It just there when you believe in yourself, but then you get into the real world and you start auditioning, you start pounding the pavement, you see that there's so many people that are talented and gifted, and they're all incredible and amazing. And so it starts to humble you over the years. And but Martha Graham talks about the queer divine dissatisfaction and that light that is uniquely yours, and that if you do not share it with the world, then it will be lost forever.
Hmm.
And that's something that I always try to hold on to, no matter how difficult things get, because it's not just talent, it's timing sometimes, and it's persistence. Um, and then life experiences, all these life experiences inform you as an artist. But I've had tremendous insecurity and battles with just trying to, with confidence and things. So that's why singing has sort of been my release, is that's where I feel at home. That's where I feel I am most my authentic self, I guess.
Well, could you please repeat that quote one more time again?
Martha Graham talks about the queer divine dissatisfaction, and that each of us has a unique light, and that if we do not share that light with the world, it will be gone forever.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah, and
that's heavy.
that really that's I think it was a letter to Agnes de Mille or something, but that she wrote her. And the artist's work is never finished. It's continual progress, work in progress. But
So, you know what's interesting? What makes me think when I hear you say that, and then you also, in the same breath, mentioned about the struggles you had with insecurity. That I think anybody, if you're ever fortunate to see Stephen perform live, it's I think that's really important that you're sharing that, because your on stage persona, when you're there in your elements, it's this inspirational confidence. That's how I've always felt.
oh, that's how I feel with you, brother. I mean, your music is extraordinary and prolific. Um, it's always inspired me.
Well, I mean, I really that means a lot. Um, can you? One of the things that's super important to me is that when I started this podcast, I was thinking about all the people that feel like they're too old, or that it's too late, or we've become this society where we're I'll just speak about myself. I have, severe dopamine addiction, and if a video is longer than 7 minutes, it's like, come on, let's move this thing along. And growing up in the late 70s and 80s, or if I was watching a movie and it annoys my wife, like, Chris, I'm like, look, there's not a single. We were watching Friends last night. I said, look, there's no cell phones in Central Perk. Everybody's engrossed in their newspaper, right?
Yeah.
But I think about how as humans, with the advancement of cell phones and the internet and instantaneous access to everything, how
Mm-hmm.
that's chopped down our level of patience. And I realize that also correlates with making somebody feel like, so that ship has sailed. And so I'm curious because I'd really love to know, like, your journey, because I want people to hear how you went from that to then recording your first songs and then your first album, because I want people to see that we all have different timelines, we all have different paths, and that dopamine fueled world of TikTok, Instagram, whatever, is just something that exists on one side, but there's also nothing. There still exists that life that was in the 80s where nobody had cell phones.
Yeah.
I feel that still is there. It's harder maybe sometimes to get to, but there's no, at least for me, when I realized there's no real rush in actuality, that I can go at my own speed. And it felt like I was falling behind, but that's why I'm very curious, because your songs are, and it's super interesting when I hear those two specific songs you mentioned, where the streets have no name and Take on Me, by these two incredible groups, that they create these complete soundscapes about how then you went on to say, I have something to say and I'm going to record.
Yeah. Yeah. Talking about the desire, the necessary drive to communicate, to express, and that um, I think it first came out in the form of like a pop song, just trying to chase the catchy hooks. I think the first song I wrote was a song called April Sometimes, which is always about the girl. It's always about the girl in pop songs. But that was the first sort of tiptoeing into structure, melody, and so forth. But um, Sunday Bloody Sunday really affected me
Mm.
from you too. The troubles, the conflict, war. Um, and so, yeah, I wrote a lot of terrible lyrics for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
horrendous lyrics. And I started to discover that I was trying to force lyrics into chord structures and it wasn't working. And it took me a
Mm.
long time to really understand how melody works and how vocals work with creating melody and hooks. And then over time, there's this sort of osmosis between what you're experiencing in the world, how you write, and melody. And then there's this sort of merging of the two. And, you're not writing poetry to make it fit to chords. You're writing lyrics that weave in and out of the soul of the melody.
Mm.
So that took a long time to learn. And there was one guy, actually, one guy. Oh my gosh, that was a formative experience in Philly. I went to this open mic and
Uh-huh.
it was this tall, lanky guy. And he ran the open mic and he heard me play. He was like, he talked like this. Hey, I like your stuff. Really good. Want to come over my place, lay down some tracks? I should have said no.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I should have said no. And then 2 years later, I had no album, and I poured all this money into this. And it was kind of a nightmare. Uh, but it was a process in which I was first learning to work in a studio. The guy
Hmm.
had a lot of equipment. He'd always be, pushing his latest amp. Do you know what this amp can do? This is the VTech 2900. No, I'm telling you, it's going to make your voice sound like it's going to make you sound like Judy Garland. But I don't want to sound. No, trust me, you're going to want your voice to sound like Judy Garland by the time this is done. This is top shelf stuff. Why are you laughing? Don't laugh at me. I'm serious. Why are you laughing?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I
Okay,
just I
that'll
was
be $250.
$50. That's who should I make the check out to? Wait, so
It's
what? So what? So what was that for? An EP or what songs were these? What happened to those songs?
Yeah, well, some of them did find second life. There was a pretty little ditty I wrote called "Lost in West Virginia" that turned out pretty well, but I never released it. Um, but it was supposed to be an EP, then it turned into an album, and then he just dragged his feet because he was the producer and he was giving me a cheaper rate. But you know, having goals and definitive deadlines and agreements prior to working with producers, it was a trial by fire
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
But what's weird is when I was in Orlando with you, when I met you, as a matter of fact, that's when I started writing this song called Fire and Brimstone.
Okay.
And it was kind of about the duplicity of evangelical hypocrisy and as, war and sort of Toby Keith, um, blind nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a mix of everything. But that's when that song started germinating, and it's all these years later, it's kind of settled into a better place. So I might actually release it. Um, but it's interesting how sometimes you'll write a song and it'll take years for it to germinate, and then some songs you write in like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So with those songs, so walk me through that experience, because something that I was talking about a couple episodes ago is that I had a realization one day where I was always finding myself, I was afraid to commit to doing something because I didn't want to make any mistakes. And then I realized that the quickest way to figure out the path was to just do it, commit those mistakes, and then learn from them and then adjust course as I go. So you meet this guy at an open mic, then you go, he's a producer, he ends up producing these songs. What were the main things that you learned going through that you could share with people who might find themselves in a similar situation?
Yeah, that you really have to vet people. Um, Producers especially. And this has also changed because now we have our control over our own production. Um, but in the event that you might find yourself looking to work with a producer, you have to listen to the person's work. Um, you have to work out the hourly rates prior to what are the goals of your songwriting. Um, you have full control, make sure you get full control of your masters, because that was a whole other debacle.
Mm.
I wanted to cut, and midway through the project I wanted to end it, but he held the masters, so I couldn't get control of them. So knowing that, and also knowing that you have to budget for musicians, and not to overextend yourself. Like, if it's your first time, just record, 2 or 3 songs. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of lessons that were learned the hard way in that experience.
So, coming from that, then how do we get to your album Fall?
And my buddy Jeff Barrett was we were living in Philly at the time, and he had introduced me to his. Well, I was listening to some of his songs, and producer he was working with by the name of Anthony Newitt Studios. They do incredible work, and I loved what Jeff was doing, so we decided to work on this song "Fall" that I'd written, and Anthony just did a Anthony and Jeff did a bang up job of producing that one, and we just started recording more and more songs and turned into a eight song EP.
So, I'm going to post a link with your permission
Oh
to
yeah,
that album. It's absolutely, it's such a beautiful work of art. It's for me a demonstration on on how to sing, um, and your ability to. It's such a. I have a feeling because my wife always tells me you never know who's listening to your music, and I like to think that Morton and uh, Paul Hewson have streamed this on their phones. It's such, I mean, from start to finish. I want you all, please, to go right away and to listen to this. Would you call it an EP
I
album?
guess a longish
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 EP?
EP.
It will absolutely floor you. And there's a cover song on there, and I, again, as people say respectfully, to Mr. Garfunkel, this your version of Bridge Over Troubled Water is. Can you? And obviously, I want to talk about your originals, but you made that song completely your own. Can you please tell the story about how you came to record that song on there? What was that whole process?
Yeah, I was uh, when I was my mother, my parents. We have a very close relationship, and my mother was always the caregiver in our family, and um, I had a brother who died 3 weeks before I was born, and he died of a rare brain aneurysm that traveled the length of Galen in his brain. At the age of 3, he had a massive stroke, which left him incapacitated, unable to eat, feed himself, take care of himself, and basically helpless. And so it was a very rare condition. It was one of 13 cases in the world
Mm.
at the time. So there was a lot of interest in the um, neuroscience, or not neuroscience, uh, brain doctors, wanting to study this condition that my brother had. And there was one doctor that was on the case that my mother, um, he said to my mother, Eileen, don't make a hero out of yourself, put him into a home. And she said, I will do no such thing.
Mm.
And she took care of him every day of his life, her and my father. There were times where he would have these seizures in the middle of the night, and dad would take him into the bathroom, and he'd just pour water over his head, just to comfort him and try and calm him. And my mother says it was the most extraordinary um, image of strength and tenderness she'd ever seen. And, she would tell stories about how she would be so excited to wake him up in the morning and throw the pillows down the stairs and um, take him out front to see the impatiens and the flowers, and then she would feed him, and he'd projectile vomit everything up, and it was a struggle just to keep him fed and everything. And but one of the things was he would wrap his fingers around my mother's uh, pinky, and she said it was the most powerful expression of love in all the universe that she felt. So little Joe lived to the age of 7, and he mom was pregnant with me, and he died, and I was due any day, and they had the funeral, and the priest was so afraid that mom was going to go into labor at the cemetery that he couldn't get her out of there fast enough. So, but the song that they played at his funeral was "Bridge Over Troubled Water," and this is at a time in the country's history after, so much tragedy in the 60s, losing JFK, MLK, and then RFK, which I think was what the song was written for. They played that song. And so for the 40th, my parents' 40th wedding anniversary, I decided I was going to record a version of it. It was dedicated to them and my brother.
So how did you, it's such an incredible version. It's so unique. How did you approach, because that song is up there in the American soundtrack. How did you, it seems to me that would be very daunting. How did you approach, now it makes sense where you had the inspiration. How did you approach the production of that and the recording of it?
Yeah, well, Anthony knew it as a genius, and he was the main producer on that one. And he has a really strong instinct for what a song needs, and knows the artists that he's working with and what their sort of production vocabulary is, for lack of a better word. And the song is a prayer. It's almost like a meditation. And I know Paul Simon wrote it as a gospel hymn. It's kind of like a gospel song. And it definitely has that chord structure there. But for me, it really was about trying to dial into this meditation, this prayer. And that's how it kind of built from there, I guess.
I think it's just an absolutely tremendous song. What I wanted to ask you about, and if you're okay sharing with it, I know that when you finished that album, that there was a chunk of time from when you finished it to where you put it out on all the socials like Spotify and Apple. Can you explain why you took that path and how many years that was?
Yeah, man. We have to be the musicians, the producers, the content creators, the designers, the track collectors, just everything.
Right.
And in the meantime, we're not making any money.
Oh, right. That part.
So, and I love your podcast because it's so inspiring. It's never too late it's too late to quit. too late to quit. And that's the thing, because the queer divine dissatisfaction keeps you restless. It keeps you moving. But I got to tell you, it gets exhausting when you are not compensated for what you feel you should be.
Mm.
And it gets brutal over the years. It can really bang you up. So, um, I had, before Spotify had come out, I was distributing it on my own. And then there's this catch 22. Well, nobody's going to hear your music if you don't put it on distribution channels. And then I guess I forget what I used, but it was like they took a 30% cut over every dollar that, you'd sell.
Mm-hmm.
And then a friend advised that I, pull it from that and just sell it on Bandcamp, because you get 100% of profit there. And so I guess that makes sense. And so I put it on Bandcamp for many years, and but just the promotion nugget is such a beast. And if people can't find your music, they can't find your music. So I waited a long time before I finally posted it onto Spotify.
I really respect the fact that you kept your car at, it's kind of like if you're driving in a new town and it's kind of got winding roads, and the locals, know every curve like the back of their hand, and they'll get right up on your bumper, but you maintained your speed. This is how I'm going to do this, because that was your journey, that was what you felt comfortable with, and that was your path. You didn't let, because there's a lot of different opinions about, this is, this is good, this is bad, this is crazy to do this, it should be done this way, but that
Yeah.
you listened and you followed your own path. And I listened to you when you were on Bandcamp, and then because I have Spotify and Apple Music. For me, I was so happy to see it there, knowing that I could stream it and add it onto my playlists. And I think it's just really cool that you stuck to your own velocity, because that was what you wanted to do. You didn't, and like you said, you were wearing 3,000 hats when you're doing it. And I think
Mhm.
to the people who can hear my voice, when you listen to this, um, you're going to be like, you're going to feel so happy that this gem has fallen into your lap. I cannot wait for you to hear this EP. It's just, and can you tell me about the song that the album is named after, Fall? How did that come about?
Um, I think it was also in Florida. That's interesting. Yeah, because as I was working as an actor, I did a lot of work in Florida, um, and it was one summer, I was hanging out with a friend and just started strumming this chorus, and it just sort of came out of nowhere. There's something in the moment she passes you by. There's something in the moment she catches your eyes. Yeah, I wanna fall. And it just kind of came
Oh
out from
man, come on.
there. And yeah, it just kind of evolved from there. But um, it's also kind of like, I think the relationship is like you meet somebody and they might have been engaged, and does that little ring make your heart dance and sing, is just kind of like, somebody else comes into your life and you're not expecting it. But you don't get to choose who you fall in love with. So that's kind of where I guess the song is about.
And it sounds like you found, after the lesson that you learned going with that quote unquote producer that you met at that open mic, it seems like then from that you went into a really supportive, creative environment of people who understood what you were doing and you respected their art and their abilities.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, being a solo musician is a little trickier too because you have to finance everything on your own.
Mhm.
That's why I'm so proud of Fall because like I poured a lot of money into that. A lot of money into that, and one of the reasons I haven't been able to record as much as I wanted to was it just cost. It just been cost,
Mhm.
and I actually worked for somebody who, um, it was just a bad business relationship, and it set me back quite a lot as a result. And so, I've always wanted to, I have a ton of material, and fortunately now I'm learning production myself, and you know, trying to just keep pushing things out as I can.
So if you could expound a little bit more on that, and just to drop the veil a little bit before we started recording, I think Stephen is being very humble because he was rattling off. I was asking him which compressors he was using with his Universal Audio Apollo twin. He rattled off the names of all of these compressors. I was like, wait, what? I had never heard of these. I'm so impressed how you've gone from, because this, you weren't always self-recording, is that correct?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's been fairly recent that I've uh, gotten better. Also, there's this course. This person, Chris Bradley, she's absolutely amazing. Produce Like a Boss. And it's an incredible program because it's for people who are not necessarily tech savvy, but they want to learn production.
Uh-huh.
And what I love about her courses is she just breaks it down so easily. Um, and she's a very nurturing kind of teacher as well. So she's inspiring and she has no pretense at all. And she just wants to help you succeed. And so she also has a great business mindset as well. And that's what she teaches in her courses. But she's really been helping me to kind of break down um, the complexities of production and make it very accessible.
Well, so you said her name is Chris Bradley, Produce Like a Boss?
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
I'll have to check that out. That sounds very, very cool. So how did you even start? What was the first thing that you did before? Did you have gear? How did you go from that studio to then recording yourself?
Yeah, well, I had Logic Pro um, about 7 years ago, but like I'd gotten so frustrated with it. And, in some of your previous episodes, you're talking about that mind block that you can get. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
oh my gosh, this is too hard. This is too painful.
Right, right.
But Chris Bradley is like, she just kind of gives you a gentle nudge. No, come over here. Let me show you.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you do here. It breaks it down.
Mm-hmm.
Very easy. So I did have some equipment, but really starting to learn uh, uh, much better now.
So walk me through your process. What is the main or do you have a main instrument that you compose on?
Yeah, it's going to be acoustic guitar, and then I'll switch between that and then the electric with my pedal board to just dial up atmosphere
Mm-hmm.
because the texture is usually what informs my writing.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? That's pretty, I think what you just said is extremely powerful. It seems like it's very natural for you, but can you bring us
Yeah,
into your world a little bit?
yeah. So there was a song that I'd written about 6 years ago called Diamonds, and I developed that when I was living in Philly, and it's just delay, like 16th note delay, and just exploring a chord structure, um, and how the effect of the delay sounds against the notes, and just sort of exploring where ideas happen and germinate. Um, there was this play that I'd seen, a friend of mine did, called The Duchess of Malfi. And there was this line in the play, and it was a very atmospheric show and production. The lighting was amazing. And there's this one moment where one of the characters is in a cemetery, and there's this like sort of green blue light
Mm,
that's on the wall. And um, there's this line that comes up um, whether by ambition, blood, or lust, like diamonds, we are cut from our own dust.
mm,
And so I heard, diamonds cut from dust are we.
mm.
So I started thinking about that. And I think the chorus was the first thing that came, which was, diamonds cut from dust are we. I see an expression catch your eyes. There's moonlight in the old churchyard, and I, a shadow on your stone walls. How can we breathe despite our fading fortunes and falling fire? You're on my shoulder. And that's, those lyrics kind of came out of that imagery of that play. Um, but a lot of times it's also the effect of listening to your voice through reverb, because that gives you, it's like time
Mm,
is suspended.
mm-hmm.
It's manipulated somehow, and it takes you into a different realm. I think there's a lot of subconscious stuff that starts to happen when you play in that field. So it's kind of like, digital delay and wet reverbs. All of those things just kind of help put you in a place where you're receptive to receiving the information that you've experienced, I guess.
I just, those lyrics of yours that you're reciting, it makes me, I feel like those lyrics could be easily studied in a college course. Like your lyrics have always been, I always love it that you always have your lyrics printed. I know there's some artists that don't do that, because your stuff is so deep. It's like it almost feels like you're allowing us to step into your subconscious, but there's a whole other world there. Like you have these different worlds. It almost makes me think of like a game I used to play like in the 80s, a computer game, or the 90s, where you're in another realm, and
Yeah.
there's something very, very uh, super interesting I've always found about your lyrics, where I feel like I'm reading some text from another world, like another part in time.
Thank you, brother. Um, there's a lot of yearning,
Mm-hmm.
yearning. Um, I've always, it's like, it's not, you don't mean to, I don't know what to say here. It's like, you have a gift and you want to share it and you want to be able to express it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the journey is so hard and can be so crushing at times, and desolate. And there have been so many desolate days. So I think a lot of the melodies that I write come from like this yearning to, um, you know, be with someone. Uh, I mean, I don't mean to sound down about this. It's just, it's like you're working through this process, and it's
Mm-hmm.
an enigma sometimes.
No, I appreciate you being so honest and real about it, because I don't know, I watch those shows where they're so heavily edited, and they have these crowd reactions and they have these backstories, and then the show tends to be more about who the celebrity judge might be than the person's story, who they're exploiting. And this person then vanishes after that. Maybe they get they get the golden, whatever, the buzzer, the mega prize, or they win the end of the competition. But there's never, we always see the shiny stuff. I hear a lot of people talking nowadays about like, oh, you see don't be fooled by what you see on the gram. You're only seeing the best of the stuff. And I think people are much more attracted, at least nowadays, or maybe always, to the reality. And so the fact that I'm curious, I think it's really interesting you shared that in those times, it almost feels like those lyrics in your songs were like somebody throwing a rope down in that well to you to help pull you out.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of my proudest things is just been able to perform that song with my band, Bonfire Falls. And, when I moved to New York, I was pursuing this sort of actor musician thing. And Once a New musical was like another sort of inspiration for what was happening creatively in theater and music. And it's always an open mic. When I moved to New York, I met this guy, and he sounded incredible. And he came off stage, and he was wearing a Once a New musical jacket.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Hey, I know somebody in that show." And he's like, "Oh, really? I work on that show." And he was a production assistant on the Broadway production. And it's like, Erica Walsh. Oh, Erica, I know Erica. She's in the show. Yeah. And Erica, I had known from Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And another interesting Florida connection, when I had recorded Fall, I was looking for a violinist on MySpace. And I had found her.
Wow.
And like years later, we all form a band together in New York. That's the condensed version, but Diamonds was a song that we would play together. And when we all would play together, it was like, that felt like home. That felt like my musical home.
Wow.
And, our last show was February 14th, 2020.
Wow. Okay.
And, I don't know what the future will hold, but, so much has happened for both of us and everybody in those 3 years. And it's like diamonds, you have to hold on to these diamonds in your life, these experiences.
So I'm curious, if you could, because I know there's somebody listening to this right now who's in one of those down times, and maybe they don't have lyrics yet, maybe they don't have a song yet. What is something that you could share with them that has helped you continue on this path? Why is it you've chosen to not stop and not throw in the towel and not sit down? What is the thing that keeps you going?
There's a desire, there's a deep desire, there's a recognition of the gift. And I always remember what Johnny Cash's mother said. Johnny, she said, "Don't forget the gift. Never forget the gift." And I love that. And it's so true. Your life will, sometimes put you in different experiences and so forth. But, if you have a gift, you have to cultivate it and nurture it. But the mental game is so big. And I didn't realize that when I was younger, towards later part of my life, because there's so much distraction that can pull you from your core. And you have to be resilient. You have to learn resilience and try to find your people, your tribe, people who lift you up, who inspire you, who make you feel good. But it's also not to say you don't associate yourself with the rest of the world, because other people might be going through a hard time and they need your inspiration. They need your energy to help lift them up. Because I've heard that sometimes in like self-help spheres. Sometimes they'll say, you know what? You can't hang out with people who bring you down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That guy, that Debbie Downer, here she is again. Well, maybe Debbie Downer just experienced the loss of her father and her brother, and who knows, maybe she lost her job. Maybe she's trying to find some sort of creative outlet to balance her life again. Who knows? You never know what's going on with other people. And we can be a light to help them as other people can be a light to help us. It's just, yeah.
Well, I got to say, it's been an absolute honor to have you on the podcast. I'm so excited that that other people can hear your story. Can you please tell me what do you have cooking in the oven right now? What can we look forward to, and where can we find it? Where can we go to hear?
Yeah. I have a song that is in a movie that's going to be debuting at the Garden State Film Festival.
Come on. Nice.
Last known location, Octopus Productions. My friend Danny Donnelly and Amy Teresa produced, directed, acted in this. It's an incredible film. And they liked my song Drowning Dove enough to put in the opening credits. So absolutely thrilled for that.
Congratulations, man. That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Thank you. And I'm developing a whole lot of new material. One song is a lot of experiences that I'm writing about now are where I grew up. A lot of history here. And so I'm trying to tap into that as well. But hopefully within the year, I should have at least an EP ready to go.
And where can we go and listen to your stuff today?
Stephen Lyons on Spotify.
And can you spell that, please?
Stephen, Stephen, Lyons, Lyons. And that's on Spotify.
Awesome. Well, Stephen, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for sharing your story. It has been absolutely thrilling to have you on this, and I can't wait for people to hear your stuff. I can't wait to hear your new stuff. And if you're listening to this, know that we are on your side, that it's never too late to quit, and you got this. Stephen, thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Had a wonderful time.